Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another week here at Apollo Racing Club. It is going to be an interesting week. After our week off, we are going to be in Hungary at the Hungaroring, a personal favorite of mine. It's a really tricky track, not a lot of room for people to really go fast. You're really only one straightaway to speak of, but there's a lot of fun twisty bits and elevation changes, which should lead to some interesting racing here tonight. Joining me in the commentary booth for the very first time is one of our newer commentators here. Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself to the folks watching here at home, and so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Paul. You might have seen me in a few of the earlier seasons here in Apollo, but been taking some time off and enjoying some of the racing. And yeah, I'm excited for what this race is going to be here at the Hungaroring. It's really going to reward people who can keep their driving nice and tight, and a lot of commitment to the turns. You have to really set up your passes and plan ahead for any racing you're going to do with your competitors.
Excellent. Well, hey, great to have you up here with me, so I'm not solo commentating another race and wrecking my vocal cords for the next 2 days. So it's going to be a pleasure to have you helping out here. So as we've been talking about, this is a strategy track. You really do have to play chess with the other drivers. You got to make sure you're planning your attacks ahead of time because this track goes from wide open to very shut down, and you can run out of room really quick if you try to pass at the wrong spot.
Speaking of running out of room, we had a collision coming out of pit lane already. I didn't get to see who it was. It was the black and yellow car, and just looked like someone brake checked him, and he drove right into the back.
Off to a strong start here in Hungary. Before we get too far down into paying attention to qualifying as our drivers are going around and warming up their tires, I do want to take a quick moment to shout out to all of our partners and sponsors that make this all possible. Same guys as usual, so we're going to go ahead and start with PitLink. And I'm actually going to post the link in the chat for anybody who wants to watch. You will be able to pull up our timing, track map, all that fun stuff. Get your eyes on all the fun statistics that we're looking at here over in the commentary booth. So big thank you to them for making that possible. We're also going to send a shout out to GridFinder and SimLink. Both services phenomenal for those who are either already very deep into sim racing or looking to get started. You can find races almost any day of the week in just about every driving game that there is, and get started here. We are an approved league for both of them, both GridFinder and SimGrid. So if you guys are looking for somewhere to get started, definitely look there. And we're also going to send a big thank you over to Driver61. For anybody who's unfamiliar, they are the de facto resource for all things motorsport, both real world and in sim racing. Go ahead and give them a look if you're looking for some of that more detailed stuff or training guides for new drivers to get up to speed as fast as you can. And with that, let's go ahead and take a look over at the track. I'm going to unmute the game audio this time so we can actually hear what's going on. And let's see who is farthest out on their hot lap so far. It looks like it's going to be car number 50. And let's get over there right now.
I'm following along with Cody Barrett. He just came across the line on the start of his lap. It looks like he's off to a good start.
And just a reminder to everybody, so we do a split qualifying here. So right now it is going to be our amateur drivers who are out there. We're split into two categories. So we're going to let these guys go out there and set their times. We'll get a good idea of what the amateur split's going to look like. And in about 10 minutes here, we'll get the pros out on the track. But let me get something lined up here. So yeah, all right. So we are watching Nick Schwartz coming around the third to final corner here. We really don't have a good idea of what the lap time is going to look like yet, as this is going to be the first hot lap. But once they finish this, we're going to have kind of our reference point to see what the rest of the afternoon is going to look like here in Hungary. And actually, something else I want to draw everybody's attention to. We saw a little bit of this in practice, but this is apparently going to bleed into qualifying and maybe even the race as well. But up in the top right-hand side of the screen, if you look at that weather forecast, we are going to have some rain here potentially. Looks like it might not come before qualifying starts, but that does not bode well for our drivers come race time. Might have some dicey weather again. And the first of our hot laps are coming across the line right now. Looks like Spencer Brown is going to set the provisional fastest lap. Let's go ahead and get Spencer on the cameras here with a 1:45.8, and we got a couple more trickling across the line right now. Jan Stam with a 1:46.1, Nick Schwartz with a 1:46.6, and Rick Reeder with a 1:47.2. for our first 4 qualifying laps. Another one comes across the line. Cody Barrett is a 148.3. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and take a look at Spencer Brown right now, who is currently 0.3 up on the on their delta from last lap, which does mean they are looking at posting the provisional quickest lap of the amateur split. Another big improvement coming out of Nick Schwartz right now, 0.7 up on the lap, coming up to the chicane. And we're gonna be seeing a lot of that corner here during the race. That is a very, very tricky chicane to get right because you essentially have to skip it without skipping it. And in these GT3 cars, they can get unsettled and it can be really dicey depending on how packed everybody is together.
And I'm looking at the timing board right now. Ayrton Green just came across the line of about 30 seconds ago, and he said what would be the fastest time, but it looks like he's not being registered for that time. He's still down in 18th. I don't know if that lap got discounted somehow, but he said a 45.6.
I see that as well. Very likely that it was an invalid lap. Probably cut a corner a little bit too much for the steward's taste, and that is going to disqualify that lap time. But Nick Schwartz right now, coming up around the final hairpin here, is going to come down pit straight, looking to set a remarkable time, and it is going to be the fastest of the session so far. Comes across the line with a 145.5, 0.3 faster than Spencer Brown, who also just posted an improvement, but it is not going to be enough to hang on to first place. We're also going to take a look over here at Chris Hungarian, 0.7 up in the delta, finding even more time coming around that corner, now almost a second faster than the previous best lap, which is going to be enough to move them up into 4th or even 3rd place if they can find a couple more tenths. Let's see what they have to do coming around the bend. They're going to come up into the final hairpin here. Keeping it nice and tucked in and composed coming around there. Both of these corners at the very end of the lap are patience corners. You really just got to let the car coast around there, because if you get on the throttle too early, it'll throw you wide off of the track and you're just going to lose whatever time you got. But Chris Hungarian keeping it nice and composed, hanging on to that 1 second improvement, and that is going to be a 146.3 for Chris Hungarian, moving them up into 4th place for qualifying. Let's go ahead and move back in the grid a little bit. Let's see here. Arthur Chu also on a good lap here. 0.3 up in the delta. Already, well, actually just now starting their lap, coming down into turns 2 and 3. And this can be a tricky corner here. There's 2 strategies for trying to take that corner. You can either open it up and turn it into kind of 2 corners, or you can hug the inside. And it does look like Arthur is going to choose to go the easier route and just make it a single apex corner, coming up over the hill and into the first hairpin here. Let's see, looking good right now.
Choose to do that?
There we go. And there it is, folks. The first fun of the night. We're just getting started. Looks like they kept that nice and composed. They are improving on the time now. 0.4 up, coming up the chicane, and they are going to run into some traffic out in front of them. Hopefully it doesn't slow them down too bad here, because we don't want to see racing during qualifying, but depending on how fast the car out in front is, may not be in the cards for Arthur to set a fast lap this time around. Yep, as they go ahead and surrender that lap, let some faster drivers go around, hang on to that tire life, and have another run at it next time around. We're going to actually take a look at Max Sunkenlap right now. 0.4 up in the delta, just 3 corners into the lap, and right now on pace to set the session best if they can hang on to the pace. So let's keep an eye on Mac here and see what they're able to do.
With Green. Green is about a half second up coming into the 3rd sector. He almost got caught out by some lap cars, but they pulled off. And judging by that potential lap, he almost said he should be in for something good coming up here. He's coming around to the last 2 corners.
Another name to keep an eye on, Andre Lloyd, 1.4 seconds up on their previous best lap, which would put them in territory for potentially taking 4th place. And as I say that, they move up into 6th, lost a little bit of it in the last corner, but that is going to be a 146.2 for Andre Lloyd as we watch Max Sunkenlap coming up on the rear bumper of one of our mods here at Apollo Racing Club.
Green,
that's going to be
46.0. He lost a lot in the last corner.
That is unfortunate, and unfortunately as well for Max Sunkenlap, came up to some slower traffic right before the lap was over and had to hit the brakes so as not to cause a collision there. He's going to have to take another run here, and I think that is actually going to be a trend that we're going to be seeing throughout the race here at Hungaroring. It is a short, tight track, and that does mean that traffic is going to be a problem for some of our faster drivers. And that is going to require extra judgment on their part, trying to determine where they're going to be fast and when they want to pass slower traffic, because as we're seeing during qualifying, it is already starting to cause some problems. Taking a look at Rick Reeder here, 2 corners left to go in the lap, 0.6 up in the delta. Last lap was a 147.2 with a 0.6 improvement would be enough for 3 positions for them. And then Max Sunkenlap also looking at another good lap, currently on pace to set the session best. We'll take a look at their lap here in just a second. Rick Reeder comes across the line and sets a 146.4, but it must have been invalid because they do not gain any positions as a result. Let's go ahead and take a look over at Mac and see if they're able to hang on to this lap time this time. Let's see when the camera pans around, do they have traffic in front? No, they have staged it out correctly. So we may actually get a pace lap out of Mac here. And as we get ready to approach the halfway mark of qualifying, in 15 seconds, the pro split drivers are going to be allowed out onto the track. And at that point, all of our amateurs have to return to the pit and get out of the way for our pro drivers. Right now, leaderboard looking very, very interesting. If you look over on the left-hand side of the screen here, you can see the fastest lap right now held by Nick Schwartz, as well as the relative time to all of our other drivers' lap times. And if you guys can see that, the top 8 are all within a second of each other. As actually, as I say that, we now have a new fastest amateur time provisional poll going to Ayrton Green with a 145.3, and based on the practice times we were seeing, that is going to be competitive here once the pros start to set their times. Max Sunkenlap comes across the line, and they're going to hang on to 4th place with a 145.7. And I think that is going to do it, unless we have any more amateurs out on the track. Let's see here. Car number 50, so Nick Schwartz trying to get one more in. Doesn't look like it's, yep, they're coming in right now. Car number 12, Spencer Brown, 1/10 up in the Delta, just enough to maybe eke out 4th place. We'll see if they're able to get it coming into the final corner here. 3/10, 2/10. Oh, they came in a little hot. It's going to compromise the exit here, but is it going to be too much for them not to get that position? Let's see here, and they do. They snag it by just 5/100ths of a second with a 145.72, hanging on to 4th place at the final second. And right now, we should start to see our pro drivers making their way onto the track. As we can see, we've got quite a tight pack here. Aiden Hasselbrook, I think, is actually leading off the charge of our pro drivers. Let's see, 25 is out there. That's Jeff Fleischman, one of our last amateurs here to finish their lap. So let's go ahead and keep an eye on Jeff here. 2/10, 3/10 up in the Delta, finding a little bit more improvement coming around the final 2 corners of this track. And then we'll actually hop back to Arthur Chu as well, who's actually really having a good lap over there. Let's see what Jeff's able to pull off here. Coming around the final bend down to pit straight. Looks like they used all the road like you're supposed to, and they're going to post a improvement, moving them up into 10th place with a 146.7, and Arthur Chu crossing the line just in front of him with a 146.6. And that is going to do it for all of our amateurs as our pro drivers are crossing the line to start their fast laps right now. It looks like it's going to be Aiden Hasselbrook that's going to be leading the charge for the pro drivers. This is going to be their first hot lap, and so when we see Aiden cross the start-finish line, we will have an idea of what our pro times are going to look like. And ooh, that was fun.
I saw that too.
They just had a little bit. Okay, well, that's one of the fun things about sim racing is, unlike in real life, there is network latency and desync. And so as you saw there off of the camera, they kind of just decided they were going to teleport through the fence and then we're magically back on the track. But everything looks good. I thought maybe they disconnected, but they're still here. Charging up the hill around the hairpin here, going to come up into the chicane here shortly. And they do have a little bit of traffic behind them. Might be keeping them company. Let's see, is that the number 73 car of Daniel Wright? That is not a car that you want behind you on this track because Daniel is a quick boy, as we've seen at all of the other races we've seen him at. And we'll see just how much quicker he is than Aiden, but Aiden does have a healthy lead to him, at least for now. See if he can get one fast lap in before he's got Daniel right up his chuff. We'll see what he's able to do coming around the bend here. Down into the final sector of the track, just 3 turns to go for Aiden Hasselbrook. We'll see what that lap time looks like here shortly. About 30 seconds left to go. And there's some more desync. All right, maybe not the best car to be watching on stream, but hopefully everybody's getting a chuckle out of it. Yep, nursing it around there.
A lot of time through that second to last corner.
Yeah, must not have had the best run through there the first time through.
Yeah, and this is a place where you can either make or break a lap, but seems to be holding pretty strong, losing a little bit of time, about a 10th or 2.
Crosses the
145.3.
Yep, and we have 3 lap times right on top of each other, and they are very, very quick, folks. So just to remind you, Ayrton Green was our final amateur qualifying time, had a 145.3. Jeff Cohn right now comes across the line with a 144.9. Daniel Wright with a 145.18. and Michael Yaknis with a 145.19, just 1/100th of a second separating second and third place, which is going to lead to some exciting racing if those paces are reflective of their race pace as well. We're going to take a look at Jeff Cohn, the Canadian driver in the number 11 car here. Currently, our provisional pole driver is on pace to improve on their previous lap time and will be the session best if they hang on to it, but gets a little bit loose on the exit there of turn 3, and that is going to yield the position back to Daniel Wright if he's able to hang on to this position. Now 4/10 up in the Delta coming into the chicane. We'll see if he's able to hang on to it, gains another 10th. Does he keep it through the exit? He's losing a little bit there on the exit, but it's not too bad. Still 4/10 up in the Delta. But that is going to lead Michael Yaknis to post an improvement there as Daniel Wright's bleeding away those 10ths, and that does mean that Michael Yaknis is now on pace to have provisional pole. We'll see if these two drivers keep their pace up here. Michael Yaknis using every inch of that track like we'd expect out of our best drivers here, coming around the last 4 corners here at Hungaroring. 5 minutes left to go in qualifying. Not a whole lot of time for these drivers to post their improvements. Again, we're looking at lap times of just shy of 2 minutes. So these drivers maybe have 2 or 3 laps at best to try and get improvements in, and Michael Yaknis using every second of that because he is now 5/10 up in the Delta coming around the final corner here, and it is going to be a battle between Daniel Wright and Michael Yaknis. It's going to be very, very close as they are trading fastest times. Daniel Wright with a 144.6 and Michael Yaknis with a 144.67, 3/100ths off from one another. And a reminder, the top 3 are all within 2/10 of each other. And our amateur driver, Ayrton Green, doing remarkably well now looking at these pro times, still within a second of our race leaders right now. It is going to be very, very interesting when it comes race time to see if they're able to hang on to that pace, especially at Hungaroring. Being fast 1 lap at a time is not enough to win a race. It does come down to consistency. And if we've learned anything from Ayrton just out of their previous performances, very, very consistent driver there in our amateur class. But let's see here. Let's take a look at Ice Tin.
Dylan Kaiser set 145.6 and dropped that lap, got invalidated. Now they're on another fast lap. They were on to improve and invalidated that lap as well. Coming across the line, it would have been a 45.8 this time around. We'll see what they can do on this last lap. I think they don't have time for too many more.
They will have enough time to do 2 more laps here because they'll finish the first one before the timer expires, and they should have time to finish the second lap as well. We will keep an eye on Dylan here, but that 145.8 would be enough for 11th place with a 6/10 improvement on the Delta right now. That does put them in the top 10 pretty commandingly. We'll have to keep an eye on the lap and see how it goes here. Coming up the hill, very, very fun corner here because you just kind of have to throw it over. Yep, back end gets a little bit loose, takes the curb. Ooh, that was wide. Again. That is too bad. Lets the car out just a little bit too wide. You only get 1 more lap here, Dylan. Make it count.
They're gonna have to back off, save the tires, and get ready for a last dash for it.
Let's take a look at Ice Tin here. 1 corner left, coming around the final bend right now. 5/10 up in the Delta. Previous lap with a 146.1. 6/10 up now. Will be a 145.7. If they're able to hang on to it, it might be faster because they are gaining time. There it is, a 145.5, moving them up from 14th place into 7th for Ice Tin, and just in time. Now has enough time to do 1 more lap, but we're going to take a look at Michael Yaknis now. Was currently, on pace to set the session best. 2/10 up on the Delta, comes around that kink right there. Runs out a little bit wide though, it's the same place as Dylan Kaiser just a moment ago, and invalidates that lap, and they do have time to get 1 more in before the end of qualifying. Let's go ahead and take a look at Andrew Jaski here. 2/10 up in the Delta, 145.1 previous lap. If they're able to hang on to that 2/10, that will move them up into the top 3. Coming around the chicane, every 10th counts here. We'll see what they're able to do.
Looks like Kaiser will have time for 1 more lap after this one.
Got to make it count. At this point, Dylan, if you're watching, I would just set a lap time. Doesn't need to be quick, but you don't want to be starting from last. Especially considering we're seeing you got the pace. Just set a good lap time.
Up, coming through turn 2. Holds on to it so far.
And we will we'll hop over and review that lap here just as soon as we see Andrew Jaski finish theirs. Currently 4/10 up in the Delta. Can they find a little bit more coming around the exit of the final corner? Here we go. 4/10. 5/10. Got a faster entry. Let's see if they're able to hang on to it. They are, as they come around the corner. Half second up, that is going to be enough. And that is going to be the fastest lap of the race, or of the qualifying session so far, setting a 1:44.5. An absolutely mega lap. Daniel Wright might have something to say about it coming around sector 3 there. Got a little bit loose, it looked like, but is managing to hang on to the Delta. 3/10 up, coming around the hairpin there. Now coming up into the final corner. They're gonna have to push really hard. Come on, Daniel. You know what you gotta do.
And Kaiser's still pushing the limits. 1.3 up coming into the last sector.
This is looking like it's gonna be a big one out of Daniel Wright. 3/10 up, sets it, and he's gonna set a 1:44.3, taking first place by 2/10 away from Michael Jaski. Let's go ahead and take it. Dylan Kaiser, 1.5 seconds up on the previous best lap, which would be a monumental improvement for them if they're able to hang on to it. Just one corner left to go. Nice wide entry to get a good exit here. Hangs on to it.
Ooh, don't lose it. Oh.
Nope, they kept it. They kept it.
Yep.
There we go.
45.1, not bad.
A remarkably good time, and with no time left to spare, although they do have the right to finish the lap that they are on because they crossed the start-finish line before the time expired. Daniel Wright, though, using every second of this qualifying time to just flex even more. Right now, 2/10 up on the previous best time, putting them on pace for a 1:44.1, which would be faster than what we were seeing in the practice times earlier by a significant margin.
Daniel Wright just never fails to impress. You always think that you've seen something incredible from him, and then he just blows it out of the water next time.
Yeah, we're gonna have to ballast this man's car or get him some competition because this is crazy. And I shouldn't even say that because that's not fair to the other drivers. We've gotten some remarkably fast times out of everybody here, but he does have a 2.5 lead on second place. Ice 10, 3/10 up in the Delta, getting ready to come around. I think that's the final corner. Overshoots it a little bit. Let's see, clean exit. Oh, okay, they're gonna hang on to the 3/10 improvement, which is going to be a position for them. Moves them up into 7th place as the qualifying session ends. Daniel Wright still making their way around the track. Not going to post a huge improvement. Looks like we've got one more car here that's gonna post an improvement. Renato Ferreira, one of our pro drivers in the 99 BMW we're looking at right now. 1.1 seconds up in the Delta, and that is gonna be a massive position improvement if they're able to hang on to it. Coming around the final bend right now, 1.2 seconds. Maybe, ooh, they lose a little bit on the exit, just late on the throttle there, but it's not gonna bleed away too bad, moving them up a position into 20th with a 1:46.9. And I believe, yep, that is going to do it for qualifying here at Hungaroring. Just a real quick recap here. So we've got the session best of a 144.3 out of Daniel Wright. And that's ridiculously impressive, but not to be underestimated. Andrew Jaski comes across with a 144.5 and just a 10th away. Michael Yaknis in 3rd place with a 144.6. But look at these times on the left-hand side of your screen, folks. The top 7, all within 1 second, with Ayrton Green just barely more than a second off from our race leader, Daniel Wright. And this is going to be a very, very interesting race because, as I like to say, when we see tight qualifyings, we tend to see tight racing during the race. We got 2.5 minutes here before the drivers begin the formation lap here. What are your thoughts after watching qualifying, Paul? What do you think we're going to see out here?
I think it's going to be a lot closer. I mean, Daniel Wright, he's always setting lightning fast times, but there are a lot of cars that were challenging him for that pole position. He did not dominate like you would normally expect. And all the way down through the field, there was a lot of close racing.
And just a reminder, during qualifying, we kind of ask that people not race with one another, just so that everybody has the best chance to try and set as fast of a time as they can, as it is the only opportunity they get to determine where they start the race on the grid. But once the race starts, all bets are off. Everybody's going to be racing with one another. And as you can see, we start double file and very tightly packed here as we do our final walk up the grid. Take a look at all these liveries. Just a reminder, folks, most of these are custom liveries. The drivers have designed them themselves. Just a little homage to their love of the sport. Make their car look as pretty as they can. And really, a lot of these guys have outdone themselves. I enjoy this part of the stream every time because I get to look at their work. I've done a couple custom liveries myself. It takes a lot of effort, folks. So really, it is awesome to see all these drivers investing as much time as they have into how their car looks as to or compared to how much time they spend driving around the track to make sure that their driving is up to stuff as well. 1 minute before the race starts, and then we're going to begin our formation lap here. And again, this is going to be the opportunity.
Sorry.
Go for it.
I have to say, I really like the paint scheme that our mods came up with this season too. It's really cool to see them kind of representing Apollo Racing Club and showing that bit of unity that they have on track as well as in the server.
For sure. And as I've mentioned, it's actually saved me a couple of times. We'll see those two BMWs. Kriegs was not able to make it tonight, but we will see those two drivers who are here. They have identical liveries, save for the fact that the tail of the rear wing, so what we're looking at in red there on this number 453 BMW, that is the only thing that differentiates the cars, is just the color of the trim. And actually, it saved me a couple of times. But something interesting is going on here, and it looks like we've lost two cars on the grid, and I don't see them in the pits. I don't know if that's just it getting staggered weirdly or somebody just disconnected. Not 100% sure what's going on there. But
we just lost the second place driver.
We did. Very, very interesting. Not great timing for that driver. We'll see if they're able to connect back in. They would start from the pits. Fortunately, not a lap down like it used to be anymore. But certainly not where they want to be starting. Now, as these cars start going away, the race is not on. This is just going to be the formation lap. So this is the last chance that these drivers will get to warm up their tires. As we've mentioned in previous races, the tire temperatures are everything in this newest patch. They are much less forgiving when they're outside of the operating window here. So these drivers are going to be doing everything that they can to try and warm up their brakes and their tires before the race starts. Unlike at the previous week's track at Bathurst, at Imola was last week. They do not have a very long amount of time to do this. This is a shorter track, so they really got to make every inch count while they're warming up their tires. Let's go ahead. We're just going to kind of scroll around the field, make our helicopter driver really earn his paycheck here. Oops. There we go. Now I'm in control of the cameras. There we go. Go ahead and say, again, a big thank you to all of our sponsors that make this happen. It really does help, and as we have seen with these streams, you know, folks who hear about that, go and sign up. It really does help, or just even using the service really does help us out, because it makes our sponsors a little bit more willing to work with us in the future. And we have been seeing, as you know, the grids are getting bigger, which means folks are using them, and that makes everything better, because the more cars we have on track, the more fun it is for everybody to watch. 27 cars on the grid. It looks like it was Andrew Jaski who had the mishap there. We'll chalk it up to mechanical failure on the grid. They are going to be starting the race from the pits. It's going to be unfortunate for their hopes of finishing in the top three, but Andrew Jaski, very, very fast driver, also a very, very consistent driver, will have no problem chewing up the lower bits of that grid. We'll just have to see how far up they make it. So from 27th, Andrew Jaski, we'll see where you're able to finish. Might even see a last to first challenge out of the driver there. You never know, we might get lucky. Taking a look at the track conditions, could be slightly better, although I don't see any rain in the forecast, which is certainly going to be good for our drivers, going to keep things nice and consistent. Looks like it's going to be a nice overcast day in the weather forecast, and the track condition is fast. We will see that go to optimum probably in the first couple of laps here, if not right after the race starts. But the drivers are going to start to line up double file now, as we get ready to come up the final three corners of the track and eventually start this race.
And as always, there's a little bit of a mess going on trying to figure out who's supposed to be where, but by the time they get that sorted out, it'll be ready time to go to the green flag.
Alrighty. And now we wait. And now we wait to see how the race is going to start. Andrew Jassy is going to be starting from the pits after everybody has passed the start-finish line. That is when they're allowed to get back out on the track, and they will not have the advantage of warming up their tires like everybody else here has, but that is going to do it for our pre-race. To everybody who's watching at home, thank you for joining us, and let's wait for the green lights and get this race underway. And there's the green light, and they are going to start drag racing down the pit straight down into turn 1. We're going to see what happens. Turn 1 can get very hairy here at Hungaroring. It is very tight, heavy braking. Look at that field of BMWs charging down into the first corner, and we are going to get this race underway. Let's hop into the helicopter camera and see, a little bit of contact between two of the BMWs there in the back of the field, and we can see 3 wide through turn 1. We're not going to see that too many times, but all the drivers keeping things relatively safe. Let's go ahead and look at the front of the pack. Daniel Wright here being chased down by Michael Yaknis down through turns 2 and 3, keeping it nice and composed.
Nick Schwartz sideways and road blocking at turn 2. I
see that. Yeah, a bit of contact coming around turn 2. Looks like the drivers mostly got it sorted out, but look at that turn 3, still 3 wide, almost gets booted out. Nick Schwartz into another BMW there, and we're gonna come up into turn 4 and 5, still 3 wide. Look at this. Okay, they're sorting it out a little bit, still double filed through some corners. There is not enough room for 2 cars here. We're watching Nick Schwartz there in the orange and blue as we focus coming around that big hairpin. Still double file right behind him. Let's take a look at the front of the pack, see what Daniel Wright and Michael Yaknis are doing. These 2 drivers are going to be very, very quick. As we saw during qualifying, their times basically right on top of each other, just 4:10 separating them. Now as we come around the second sector of the track, Daniel Wright still out in front, but Michael Yaknis right behind him, keeping him under pressure. Let's go ahead and take a look at Spencer Brown. It's a little bit of contact. We got a car off the track there, rejoins without any drama. Spencer Brown gets the better of that little bump and tap there with the other driver. I think it was Nick Schwartz. It was. And we are almost done with our first lap here at Hungaroring. Look at that field of car, folks. Let's go ahead and hop up to the helicopter camera. See, we're starting to space out a little bit more, but the cars are still basically right on top of each other. Although we are starting to get single file.
Turn 2 really helped the leaders, the top 6 or so cars, get away, and so they've got nothing to worry about behind them as this midfield pack is really packed up and battling closely.
And as we say that, Daniel Wright finishes the first lap here at Hungaroring. Coming around turn 1, it's going to look a lot more tame as... Oop, there goes, yeah, that was desync. I thought that was a driver about to put their car into the wall. We'll probably be seeing that out of that driver a couple of times today, so we'll just have to ignore that as it happens. Coming down into turn 2, Michael Yaknis tries to get the inside line on Daniel Wright. We'll see if it pays off on the exit coming down into turn 4. It does look like Daniel Wright picked the better line as Michael Yaknis goes a little bit wide there, but still not giving Daniel Wright too much room to breathe. As actually we can see over on the left-hand side, the purple number 2 next to Michael Yaknis does mean he set the session best time. So still a little faster on that first lap than Daniel Wright was. We'll see what Daniel Wright does coming around this lap. Let's go ahead and take a look back in the pack as we've got these guys stacking up on top of each other here. Nick Schwartz, half second between him and the car in front, as well as the car behind. And let's see who is that. That's Rogerio Santos in the number 177 BMW right behind him, followed by Leo Lindsay as this battle for 9th place is getting tighter. Nick Schwartz almost getting rear-ended by the number 50 BMW of Nick Schwartz, but gets on the brakes just in time to not cause that. That is going to be somewhere we want to be keeping an eye on as this race goes on. That chicane is going to get a little bit hairy as the cars break in, the tires start to get a little bit loose. And actually, we're going to go back a car, take a look at Rogerio Santos there. Has the other BMW, I can't see who that is, right on the rear bumper there. And is going to go for the dive coming into this final corner, and there's going to be contact. Pushes Rogerio Santos off the track. Not sure if I agree with that move there, if they just ran out of room or what happened there. But, oh my goodness, then tries to turn right across Rogerio Santos and spins the BMW around. And one of the worst parts of the track is now they have to try and get the car turned around in that hairpin, which was essentially blind for some other cars. That was some questionable driving out of, I believe that was Leo Lindsay there.
Yeah, and then after that, I'm not sure if Santos tried to go for revenge or if he just got a little bit worked up trying to rejoin the track and drove it in himself and basically just turned himself off of the other car.
Not sure, but only 4 minutes into the race and we're starting to see some action between our drivers. Ordinarily, you'd like to see that going on a little late. Well, you don't see that going on at all, but definitely not starting the race like that. Let's see if the drivers clean it up. Let's go ahead and take a look back at this pack over with Cody Barrett. We're having a little bit of, oh my goodness, and we see somebody brakes a little bit late there. That yellow BMW does. Is that's Thomas Castellani, almost going into the back of Cody Barrett. Oh, we got another BMW spun around in huge contact out of a couple of them. I'm trying to get back there. Oh no, and Andrew Jaski is included in the carnage.
Oh, yeah, Jaski had just made 1 or 2 positions, but something lap, I've seen him. He went off track 2 or 3 times in that first lap, so I don't know if he's having any issues or what was going on there, but but it's not a good start to the race for him.
Man,
It looks
no,
like
and
that may
Andrew,
be his race more or less
yeah,
over.
and Andrew Jaski with, it looks like 160 seconds of damage, and that is going to be a pit or a tow back to the pits, because that is, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the alignment of the car was messed up, as well as the front arrow looked a little bit like Rogerio Santos' car here, where it was just banged up. And this early into the race, especially after starting from the pits, we'll see if we'll see what Andrew decides to do, if they fix the car and get it back out on the track and finish the lap, or if that's going to be it. As of right now, we still have 27 cars in the race. We'll see what he decides to do.
Is limping it back around, but he's going off at the runoffs. He's probably just trying to bring it back to the pits and hopefully get it fixed, but it's not looking too good for him.
We'll keep you updated on that, folks, but let's keep an eye on the race here. Back with Leo Lindsay, who just got involved in a little bit of drama 2 laps ago, has a train of cars forming up behind him. It is going to turn into a battle for 11th place as they are trying to chase down Jan Stam out in front. That BMW going around the corner on your screen right now. Not close enough to call it a battle for 10th yet, but the 4 cars behind him are definitely in contention for 11th as they come down the hill up into that little gully there. Looked like the back was going to get a little bit loose there from Leo Lindsay, but it manages to keep it nice and composed up the hill. We'll see what they do coming up over that corner right there. We've got 3 almost identical BMWs racing with one another, which is going to make my job a lot more difficult, trying to figure out who's doing what. Chris Hungarian right behind him, not giving him a lot of room to think. We'll see what they do coming up into the chicane here. Keeping it nice and composed, and you can see when they hit that that orange bump there on the inside there, really does hop the car up, which reduces grip. And when you've got cars racing for position and the fast line requires you hit that, can get a little bit hairy once these cars are a little bit more stacked on top of each other. Chris, though, doing an excellent job of keeping the car composed, coming around the corner, using every inch of the track, keeping the tires inside the track, coming down into the next one, heavy onto the brakes here, and slowly closing that gap out to 11th place. L. Lindsay is losing time to the cars behind. He's getting a little bit closer. Chris has got to be smelling some blood here coming around the second to last corner here. We'll see if he's able to make up a little bit more time coming around the final corner. And we might see him get the tow here, getting into the draft of the car out in front, coming around the pit straight. This is going to be excellent positioning for Chris Hungarian, because he is going to be in the tow of the car out in front, which is going to give him the top speed advantage coming down the straight. We'll see if it's enough for him to get the inside line of turn 1. And we will know shortly here.
Pointy end of the field, Daniel Wright still leads, but he is under pressure. The top 4 cars all within 2 seconds of each other. He is not running away like I'm sure people might expect him to, and actually he's under pressure from a few cars that might be challenging him for the win coming up. I mean, there's still a lot of racing left, but
we'll see. I was too wide through turn 2 there for Chris Hungarian and L. Lindsay, and now Chris Hungarian gets a bad exit, and now Ara Ferraria is going to look up the outside there, thinks better of it, which was a good decision, gets on the brakes early there, tries to get the inside line, not quite enough to displace Chris here, but he is going to get a lot closer right on the rear bumper of that car, followed shortly by Ara Ferraria there in the black and green BMW just behind him. And I think that's Andre Lloyd, one of our other amateur drivers, who is going to be in contention now for this battle for 12th place. There are going to be 5 cars included. Well, let's take a look up at Aiden Hasselbrook, who is currently chasing down 3rd place Jeff Cohn, who just a couple of laps ago had the session best lap time. It got stolen away shortly after by Daniel Wright, but is going to be under pressure as we watch Aiden Harry Potter his way through the track again. Okay, now we know which car it is that's going to be doing that.
we have Carlin and Jaschke both making their way out of the pits. Carlin came in for repairs. He was involved in that incident on lap 3, and Jaschke is just exiting in front of the leaders. I think he's a lap down now, or a lap further down than the other people involved with him.
Yeah,
thanks to his tow.
By count, the race leaders have done 4 laps. Andrew Jaschke is on his second, it looks like. No, completed second lap as our race leaders start their 5th one. But who was it that I just had on camera a second ago? It was about to get a little bit interesting between them. Let's go ahead and hop back over with Renato Ferraria, who almost goes into the back of the BMW out in front. Coming around turn 1, now going to come down the hill into turns 2 and 3. And these 5 cars still duking it out for 11th position, led off by Leo Lindsay. who is potentially in the best spot of the pack because he has to think about the fewest number of cars, but the rest of them all basically on top of each other, racing in that dirty air, not going to be getting all of the help from the aerodynamics of the car, makes it really sketchy, especially on a track like Hungaroring, where you really have to run a high downforce setup to try and keep that car glued to the track. As you can see, a lot of these are low and medium speed corners, so every little bit of help you can get out of the car counts. And driving this close to the rear bumper of cars out in front, you're basically not getting any help from the front of the car as they come up over that curb there, keeping it nice and composed. And this single file race for 11th is going to continue to rage on. But let's take a look up at our race leaders here, as he is getting ready to catch up to Jaski, which is going to be interesting.
And Wright's even more under pressure from Yaknis. They've been gapping the cars behind a little bit. Third and fourth place, still fighting with each other, but dropping back. But Yaknis is right on the back bumper of Daniel Wright.
Not far behind him, Ayrton Green still now under fire from Ice Tin. Right behind him, coming down the pit straight. That is going to be close enough to be getting a little bit of a draft for the car behind. Isn't going to be enough for him to try something on the inside. Doesn't look like he's going to try it, but is going to set up a good exit around turn 1 to potentially have a shot at overtaking here coming into turn 2. Let's see what he does with it. Doesn't look like he got as good of an exit as he was hoping for. And he's going to have to follow.
Eiston is going to be licking his chops to try to make this pass, seeing that red number plate of the amateur driver in front of him. He's not going to be satisfied with that.
No, he is not. Little update on the battle for 17th. Jeff Fleischman loses a position to Arthur Chu. That is going to be P17 gain for Arthur Chu over there. Jeff Cohn sets the new session fastest lap of the race, the one we were just watching a little bit ago, who was chasing down second place. Not quite enough for him to cinch up on him. The battle for first rages on. Daniel Wright has not had a second to himself like he normally does during these races. 12 laps in, or 12 minutes in, and he still has second place right on his rear bumper. And this may just be a part of Michael Yaknis' strategy. They're keeping it right behind him, so he's keeping Daniel stressed out so he can't focus on driving as fast as he can. Or potentially, Michael is just trying to preserve his tires and go for the pit strategy later in the race here. Go ahead and take a look back at car number 12. Spencer Brown has a little bit of a race for second or 8th place coming on. Nick Schwartz there. We can't quite see where he comes out because of where that flag is. But we got a little bit of a battle for 8th place there, trying to make sure everybody gets their screen time here. And the main pack still very on top of one another. Looks like everybody basically in the same sector of the race. Let's take a look at the number 1 car of El Lindsay. The battle for 11th is getting a little bit tighter. What was about a half a second gap to the car behind now is less than 2/10 here. And that is not what Lindsay wants to see coming down this straight, because that is going to let those cars behind just get ever so closer by the end of the straight. Doesn't look like it's going to put them in striking distance coming around turn 1, but he looks up the inside, Chris Hungarian does, and overshoots it a little bit, gets on the inside curbing there, runs into the grass, and that is going to bleed away way more speed than they were counting on, and that is going to allow Renato Ferreira to catch up to Chris Hungarian coming down into turns 2 and 3 here. Let's see if they try something. Oh, and Leo Lindsay overshoots the braking zone. Now he's going to go almost too wide now, has the Chris Hungarian right there, and oh my goodness, they're so close. And it's difficult for me to tell which car is which, but they're going to go double file here coming up the hill into turns 4 potentially. See the car on the outside gets early on the brakes, and that is going to let Chris Hungarian get the better line there. Sets up for the hairpin around the hill, and you can see that black and green BMW is starting to get a little bit impatient as they enter this fight for 12th place. And let's see what they do coming up into the hairpin, or the chicane.
Yeah, all this fighting has really let Lloyd and even Afonso is probably eating away at their time. So these cars that are fighting for one position have to worry about losing 2 or 3 more positions if they make any mistakes.
And let's just give you guys, the folks at home, just how tight these I'm trying to find the right camera so I can hop onto the rear wing here, and so we can just demonstrate just how close these cars are. to one another, because on the camera it looks like there's quite a bit of space, but when you are looking at the rear view camera, it is not the same picture that Chris Hungarian is looking at right now. Coming around the second to the final corner here, up the hill into the final hairpin. Let's see how he does. Late onto the brakes, hugs the inside line there, and that is going to set them up for a good exit down the pit straight, and it is looking like it's going to pay off for him. Gets a little bit of a gap to that car behind and gets him a little bit closer to the car out in 11th place in front of him of Leo Lindsay. And that is going to be another lap. 15 minutes down, and unfortunately, I have an update on the weather situation. In 30 minutes, we are going to have rain, folks.
And Lloyd, going into turn 1, Lloyd just looked like he made a pass on Afonso. Now up into 14th place and trying to eat away, catch back up to these cars that are battling up in front of him.
Yeah, and actually, a little bit of an update. Daniel Wright, I saw a yellow flag there on him, so must have made enough of a mistake. Right now, almost 2 seconds down on their previous best lap. And it does not look like it's... Yeah, he is in second place. Yeah, he lost the lead to Michael Yaknis. And now Daniel Wright under fire from Jeff Cohn. Looking at Daniel Wright's car, I don't see any damage, so I don't think it was a collision between the two of them that made that happen. Let's see. Actually, yeah, it just looks like an accident in, must have been turn 1. Either ran a little bit wide there, under pressure from Michael Yaknis. Don't think there was contact because I don't see both cars listed there, but whatever happened was enough for Michael Yaknis to get around Daniel Wright. Now that is Michael Yaknis 1, Daniel Wright 2, Jeff Cohn 3. And we'll see what Daniel Wright has to say about it here as he comes across the start-finish line and is now going to be trying to track down Michael Yaknis, get that position back from him. But now we see Aiden Hasselbrook got a position away from Jeff Cohn there in the final corner. There's just too much action for us to catch it all on camera, but that is another position change there. So that's now Aiden Hasselbrook in position 3, Jeff Cohn in position 4. We'll see what they do with it. Michael Yaknis, we're gonna keep an eye on the gaps there, but let's look at another battle on this track. Actually, just 2 cars behind. It looks like they are very close to one another as we watch Aiden try to fly his BMW again.
And I'm looking back at it. Actually, Yaknis just made a pass on Wright. Going into turn 2, presented up the inside and made a clean pass. There was no issue with Wright.
Okay. I'm not sure what, we got to stop watching Aiden on camera because that was crazy. Oh, we got a yellow flag here at the back of the packs. Now it's a white flag as we see some cars slowing down. Actually, one off the track. Who was that who just parked their car? Leo Lindsay parking the car out on the outside of the corner. Not sure what happened there. We'll see what happens, but we're seeing a lot of positions gained now on the leaderboard. That's just because somebody stopped. Not certain what happened there. It makes me wonder. I wonder if they forgot to put fuel in the car. Maybe they were running the same setup as they were during qualifying and forgot to fill the gas tank. Message out in the chat, BRL Phantom. I love how the killer quality in a game DS'd me at the end of 3 laps down. You must be just I don't recognize the Twitch name. You must be Andrew Jaski, I think is who we're talking to over in the chat. Yeah, unfortunate. Really unfortunate to see that. Not sure what happened there. But we do hate to see stuff like that happening.
Yeah, to go from a strong second place in qualifying to starting in last place to wrecked out after 2 laps, 3 laps, that's an awful way to, you get excited and put in a good performance, and then all of a sudden your race is over before you know it.
Well, and that's one of the criticisms, or one of the unfair criticisms I think I hear the most about sim racing is, oh, you're not in any danger. This isn't as crazy or unpredictable as real motorsport. And that, while that is true, we do still see crazy, unfortunate things happen like that, as we saw during the this F1 season with my boy in the Red Bull. You can have mechanical failures on the start-finish line. That does happen, and while it's not exactly what happens in sim racing here, we can see people get disconnected right before the race starts, and it's essentially the same thing. So, luck does still have a very major factor here in sim racing, but I'm gonna go ahead and stop talking about that because this battle for 12th is heating up. Andre Lloyd is gonna be heading it off, but 2 BMWs right behind him. Are they gonna try to go for the 2 wide, coming up into this really
Thinks better of it.
Thinks better of it, yeah, and avoids what would have been a very messy collision coming up into the hairpin, but those other 2 BMWs right behind him trying to go 2 wide around this hairpin. The action has not stopped.
Yeah, Afonso backed out going into turn 5, and then next thing he knew, he had Ferreira trying to look up his inside going into turn 6.
Yeah, and it looks like, let's see, oh, 2 more. Oh man, I should have raced tonight. Hello, Kimball. Sword and Keyboard, how you doing out there? Anybody who's in chat, who has the ability, what's going on? How you doing? How's your night? It's Saturday, start of a new month. February, January's over. How's your 2022 going? We're 1 month in. Are you ready to return it? And let's see, Jasky, yup, killer of a run, only 2/10 off of right, and then ACC boots me and the rookie killed me. That's
position to Ferreira. Ferreira, it looks like Afonso was trying too hard to defend, drove it too deep into the second to last corner, and Ferreira just walked right through the open door, and he's on the way trying to chase down Lloyd now.
The pit is now open.
And that is, so now we're at the 40-minute mark. That is going to be the pit window open. Reminder for anybody who's, or I should say, anybody who's watching us for the first time, there's a mandatory pit window where all of our drivers have 20 minutes in the middle of the race. They must go through pit lane and they are required to change their tires. And there's actually a lot of strategy that goes into deciding when you're going to do that. And we'll be keeping an eye to see who does what here.
And speaking of that, Lindsley just came out of the pits 24th, but he just came right into this battle for 13th. So now he's holding up Afonso, which gives Ferreira and Lloyd room to fight with each other.
Yeah, and that's not a position that I love to see a driver in, especially if you're a lap down. It's generally the smarter decision to just get out of the way of the position, or battles for position if you're holding them up. But we'll see what the pace looks like now that they are back out on the track. We'll see if my criticism is warranted or if I'm just
Speaking of
being
that,
picky.
Afonso has been let loose. Looks like Lindsley is letting the other cars go by.
Good. That's what you want to see. You want to see, well-behaved blue flags. Just makes everybody's race better. And a reminder, anybody who's watching F1, they have maybe 2 or 3 quarters before they are required to yield the position to a faster car. In GT3 racing, that is not the case. It is just a suggestion to get out of the way. You're just not allowed to defend if they try to pass you. Let's take a look here, see if we've got any tight battles here. Let's check in. Michael Yaknis up in first place. Still has Daniel Wright not right behind him, but pretty close, as Daniel Wright actually snagged the session fastest lap by just 1/10 of a second with a 1:44.4, starting to get closer to that qualifying time that we saw. We'll see if it's going to be enough for him to line up the pass on Michael Yaknis. But as we saw,
like Yaknis is driving by. I'm guessing that's a teammate now, because they let Yaknis right by, and now they're holding the position in front of Wright, and it looks like they're in the same paint job. Okay, they let Wright go. It looked like that was Carlin.
Let's see if they're on the same team here. They are not, just very similar liveries. But
Okay.
yeah, correct decision from one of the slower drivers. It's better not to slow anybody up. It just ruins both people's laps.
And Lloyd is in the pits. Lloyd, who was fighting or holding on to, I believe it was 11th place at the time. He's in the pits now, letting who was that, Afonso and Ferreira go.
It may just be a strategic decision to serve that mandatory pit as early as possible. If my friend Fred Fosberg were still in the commentary booth with us here, he'd probably be yelling up a storm, because his MO is wait as long as you can to serve that pit lane, or that pit stop, and that is generally advisable. But it looks like the amateur driver Andre Lloyd serving it as soon as possible, just getting it out of the way.
Not a bad plan, because the way that this fight has been going, it's been holding up all of these drivers. So maybe his idea is just to let Ferrero and Afonso fight it out while he just sets hot laps, and then when it comes time for their pits, he'll just be able to eat them up. Essentially the undercut by 20 laps.
We're going to be watching Rick Reeder here. Going to be getting chased down by the number 1 car. Who is the number 1 car? Oh, that's El Lindsay. So that's not a battle. That's not a battle for position. So let's see. I'm just looking for anybody who's got a tight gap. Oh, okay. All right. That was a good time to look at that. A little late on the brakes out of the white and pink BMW there. Almost goes into the back of the yellow one out in front. That's going to be, we're on board with Jan Stam. That's going to be Spencer Brown out in front. We'll see what they do coming up the hill into this fast left-hander.
That's a lap down car.
Is it? Okay.
So that's Brown in the white and pink, being chased down by Stam. And so this lap down car of Santos is going to play into this battle before too long here, if it's not already.
Sword and Keyboard says, I see you have 2 seniors in this race, Peter David and Rogerio Santos. Oh man, we're spitting fire in the chat today. Is that your way of, is that your friendly way of calling them slow? What do you mean? Or are they just old? I don't know. Dylan Kaiser on their way into the pits, right behind the number 240 car, which is Billy Carlin, going to be serving that pit stop as well.
And Carlin is one of those cars that was involved in that incident earlier. They've already been in the pits and spent some time there, but I believe it was before the pit window was open, or they just couldn't stretch it out to the end. So here they are serving their official mandatory pit.
Gotcha.
And meanwhile, his battle for 7th is still going on. The gaps are more or less holding steady, with Brown, Stam, and Schwartz each separated by about 3/4 of a second, but they're all following right along behind this lap car of Rogerio Santos. He seems to be keeping pace on them, and no point to let the other cars by if they can't keep up with you.
That is for sure. Yeah, you're certainly under no obligation to do so anyways, but if you are faster than them, be faster than them. You know, don't want to yield the position just to get stuck on the rear bumper again. Ooh, we saw a little bit at the rear end of Spencer Brown bouncing around, coming around that hairpin, but manages to keep it from spinning as BMW really likes to be planted to the ground until it isn't, and then it just kind of lets go, and God hopes you're paying attention. Sword and Keyboard, no, they are seniors, I know him. Rogerio is very fast. Oh no! Dylan Kaiser picks up a stop and go 30 for speeding in the pit lane, it looks like. That is gonna be a massive penalty after a very good start of the race. We'll see what they choose to do with it here. But now down in P19, certainly going to end up lower than that after serving that penalty. We'll see what they choose to do with it. And the gap between Spencer Brown and that car behind is getting smaller.
Back at the front of the field, Yaknis has pulled out a 2-second gap on Wright, but Wright is still having to look in his mirror from Hasselbrock now, who's looking for a little bit better. I mean, anybody in the field is going to be happy to make it past Wright, and it looks like Wright is not having the strongest race.
We'll see what he's able to do. Still 32 minutes left here in Hungary. We'll see if he's able to pull something out. 12 minutes before the mandatory pit window closes. Again, update from chat. Sword and Keyboard. We are in an E-Seniors race league, 50 plus. That's super cool. That is actually really cool. I'm glad to hear that that's a thing. And we're naturally glad to have you here at Apollo Racing Club.
Yeah, I didn't realize we had any. Putting it bluntly, I didn't realize we had any people with that much age in our group. That is cool to see.
You mean to tell me we're not all 20? What?
I know, I feel like the old guy sometimes.
Especially considering that I just celebrated my 27th birthday, and like to make the joke that I look like a dying old man, knowing in fact that it is not at all the case.
We usually have Big Daddy Fife, who is the elder statesman of the group, if you will.
Yeah. No, but I am basically a child. All right, let's go ahead and hop back over to this battle. It looks like Jan Stam did get the position away from Spencer Brown. We just missed it on the cameras here. But that is going to be P7 Jan Stam and P8 Spencer Brown. We'll see if Spencer Brown has anything to say about it. Just
it certainly looks like he will, especially coming up onto this long front straight. And that's Nick Schwartz into the pit. Nick Schwartz, who was in 10th place fighting with them, now pulls off into the pits for his mandatory stop.
As it looks like, let's see how long Ayrton Green's gonna get ready here to leave the pits shortly. Other than that, nobody in the, no one doing pit stops right here at this moment. Let's look around the field, see if I can find anybody who's battling for position right now. Doesn't look like there's too much else going on, at least nothing that's closer than the battle we're watching on camera right now. 30 minutes left here at the Hungaroring. That looks like that rain is staying just far enough away to where it may not be a problem by the end of the race, but we will be keeping an eye on that weather forecast. The wind not blowing hard enough to get it over our heads right away, but might see something before the end of the race, and our drivers will be able to see that same weather forecast that we are seeing, and that might be explaining why some drivers are holding out to see what that forecast looks like, because that may change drastically how they choose their strategies here if we see that rain here sooner rather than later. Number 48 picks up a stop and go. Nope, excuse me. That's just a reminder that Dylan Kaiser has 1 lap remaining to serve that stop and go 30 for speeding in the pit lane. Gonna have to get in there and serve that right away. Currently sitting in P16, it looks like.
Keep it up.
Let's just give a shout out to Easton, currently holding 5th place, but in no man's land, just driving by himself. In fact, the closest driver to him, I believe, is about 15 seconds behind and 20 seconds up the road.
Not an exciting place to be, but you know, a safe place to be. You can focus on just running your race, keeping things nice and consistent.
Yeah, let's be serious. Drivers don't want exciting races most of the time.
Oh no, I hate being in this spot. Where Iceton is right now, least favorite place to be on the entire track. I would so much rather be stressed out of mind and sweating bullets trying to defend somebody than doing what he's doing. But as far as race strategy goes, this is not a bad place to be. Keep things nice and composed, focus on running your race, and not be shredding your tires trying to push past somebody or fend off somebody who's trying to get around you.
And someone must have pulled into the pits. Jeff Cohn, who was, I believe, in 4th place, is exiting the pits right now, dropping, looks like he's going to come out in 14th place now, right behind Kimball.
And just a reminder to everybody, if on the left-hand side of your screen, next to the car numbers, you'll see either an orange number 1 or a green bar. The ones with a green bar have served their mandatory pit stop. The ones with a 1, that's denoting that they still have 1 mandatory pit to serve. They've got 8.5 minutes to do it before they run out of time. And the leaderboard's going to be a little bit silly here until everybody has served their mandatory pits. It's really not easy to tell who's in what place relative, just based on the fact that not everybody's served their pit stops yet. But Jeff Cohn is going to be right on the rear bumper of one of the AC mods. It's going to be Pfeiffer there at coming around. Ooh, he's going to get him on the outside, I think. If Mr. Kimball just gives the position. Smart decision there. All right, Dylan Kaiser into the pit, serving that stop and go 30 right now. Renato Ferreira leaving pit lane right now, enters the track in position, let's see, P17, or P15, excuse me. And right now I am looking for anybody who's racing with one another. The field is pretty spread out again with the mandatory pits. Things tend to get staggered out and a little bit messed up, but I'm looking for anybody who is close to one another. Let's take a look at Jan Stam.
Yeah,
We were just watching.
Still in a little bit of a train with Brown. Afonso has dropped back a ways, but this is probably the closest race on track right now, at least towards the front of the field.
Ooh, that looked really sketchy right behind. We almost saw a collision there with Spencer Brown and that slower car there, but manages to get around safely without causing a collision.
And Stam and Brown have just been promoted to 2nd and 3rd, right behind Wright, who has inherited the lead now through the pit cycles.
Yeah, we'll see how long they hang on to that.
He's pulling in right now.
That's Daniel Wright into the pits. Yep, that is Daniel Wright coming into the pit lane right now to serve that mandatory pit. 6 minutes and 40 seconds left. Let's see, I'm looking on the track. Where is Michael Yaknis? Number 453 car. Is about halfway through the lap. We'll be keeping an eye on, I want to keep an eye on Yaknis because where he comes out and where Wright comes out of this pit is going to be very, very interesting, and it is going to be close. We've seen Michael Yaknis only get faster without Daniel Wright, but Daniel Wright did set the session best just a little bit ago, beating out Michael Yaknis by 8/100ths of a second. We'll see if that is going to be enough pit time. Let's see, there's 30 seconds for Daniel Wright.
Looks like a 26-second stop is what it's expecting. I think that's going to give the lead back to Yaknis.
I think it is. Not sure what Daniel Wright is doing in there, but we got to get that car off of the jacks and get it driving. Michael Yaknis coming around the final corner right now, and that does mean that he's going to pass Daniel Wright in the pits.
And he's rolling.
Oh, but it's not going to be soon enough. We can see
right
him.
next to Yaknis.
Oh, and
Yeah,
he's going to have to sword in right
position.
behind him, and he's going to be a couple of seconds behind. And that gap is going to grow a little bit because he's going to be coming out on not optimal tires, and we can actually see that rain is getting closer now. Now
Actually,
10 minutes away.
Yaknis isn't even in the effective lead. He's lost the lead to Hasselbrock.
I see that. So that is going to be Aiden Hasselbrock
Correct me
one.
if I'm
Michael,
wrong.
no,
Hasselbrock was the other person fighting for the top positions.
you are correct. And now, yeah, that is going to be Aiden Hasselbrock 1, Michael Yaknis 2, Daniel Wright 3. And I realize that Jan Stam and Afonso there, are in 1 and 2 provisionally right now, but when they serve their pit stop, they will fall back down. And Spencer Brown picks up a stop and go 30 for speeding in the pit lane as they come out.
And that's got to be brutal for him, considering he was in a easy top 10 position.
Yeah. And that is going to be stop and go 30s for speeding in the pit lane for both of our Relentless Motorsports drivers. That is unfortunate for the team standings here. We'll see what the drivers are able to do with it to finish out the race here. 24 minutes left at the Hungaroring as we watch Aiden Hasselbrock desync their way off the track there and get right back on track as if by magic. This is going to be an interesting battle for first to watch with the lag playing a factor here. We're going to see some silly stuff happen there. Daniel Wright is getting closer to the pack, though. Not quite as much of a gap as I expected. Looks like 2.5 seconds, which is not good.
Fonzo has now inherited the lead. It looks like he's the last of our leaders waiting to pit.
Yep, with John Stam in the pits right now. We'll see the standings on the left-hand side update once we cross sector lines here, which should be coming up shortly for Afonso. But he's going to have to come in this lap. Will not have enough time to do 2 more laps here before serving that pit stop. So we'll see where they come out. Looking at the rest of the pack, only 4, excuse me. Oh no, and then Thomas
Castellani has
Castellani.
inherited a drive-through.
Just a drive-through, could be worse, but that is going to be for violating track limits. Where were they on the track? Yeah, so they must have run wide coming up that hill, like we saw Dylan Kaiser doing during qualifying that was invalidating the lap time. And that is going to be 4 times too many for the driver because they're going to pick up a drive-through penalty. Not as bad as a stop-and-go 30, but certainly not great for their hopes of finishing well here. John Stam making their way back out onto the track right now, finishing the mandatory pit. That is going to move them down into 9th place. Not a bad place to be, top 10. We'll see if they're able to hang on to it. 22 minutes left to do so. And in a very advantageous place as far as the pit window goes. Again, it's my opinion, you try to stay out there as long as you can before serving that pit stop, because when you come back out on the track, you're going to have as light of a fuel load as possible and as fresh of tires as possible to finish the race out. Andre Alfonso looks like coming into the pits right now, just like we were expecting. And that is going to be Aiden Hasselbrock coming around the final corner to pass them before they get into the pit stops. And that's going to be the order to probably finish this final leg of the race. It's going to be Aiden Hasselbrock 1, Michael Yaknis 2, and Daniel Wright 3, all within about 2 seconds of another. And you can see Daniel Wright there in the background. We'll see if he's able to catch up, but this battle for first is going to get interesting between Michael Yaknis and Andre Alfonso. Very, very close race here. And it is just good to see Alfonso doing well in a BMW. For the longest time, he was driving the old BMW M6, which just did not get any love from the development staff of this game. We know he's happy to be driving the newer car here, and he is showing his excitement about it. Let's see here. We're going to be watching this battle for first as best we can here, despite the lag. Eventually, occasionally throwing Aiden Hasselbrock off the track. Nothing we can do about that from our side, unfortunately.
And there are a couple other pair battles going on looks like down in 8th place. As the leaderboard cycles through. There we go. Jen Stam and Green fighting for 6th place now, and then Ungurian and Schwartz fighting for 8th place.
Yep, and we'll be hopping around. First time Chad viewer from Jalinar. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you. Leader is Goofy.
Afonso picks up a drive-through.
Afonso picks up drive-through for what? Did you see?
I did not see, but it was right as he came out of the pits.
May have been track limits? Because you would get a stop and go 30 for speeding.
Crossing the pit line, perhaps.
Yeah, that might have been it. Might have jetted over a little bit too early, and that is going to be a pretty big penalty. But yeah, leader is goofy, as we've been seeing. Yeah, Aiden Hasselbrock has some desync issues, it looks like, with the server, and occasionally you're going to see him bending the laws of physics, which makes sense considering his lap times. See, last lap out of Aiden Hasselbrock being a 144.6, just a 10th off of their previous best. And the pit window is going to close here in the next 7 seconds. This is going to be the standings to the end of the race unless any of these drivers start overtaking folks. We're going to be watching this battle with Jan Stam as well as Nick Schwartz here in just a second. We'll go ahead and hop back there right now to watch these two. 20 minutes left in the race, folks. In 10 minutes, we may have some rain, which is going to be very, very interesting. It looks like it might just be a sprinkling, which may not warrant these drivers swapping out for wet tires, but not something these drivers are going to be wanting to see here in the final legs of these races. The tires will be at the end of their usable life, and it is going to make it even more difficult for these drivers to try and negotiate these changing conditions. We'll see what happens. I know the drivers are going to be hoping that things stay dry, and us from the commentary booth, I'm not going to say that I'm hoping that it rains, but it certainly would be more exciting if it did. Looks like these two battles between Chris Ungurian and Nick Schwartz and John Stam and A. Green here are going to be the ones that we're watching here. Let's take a look. Michael Yaknis has a 1 second gap to Daniel Wright. Aiden Hasselbrock also has a decent gap out in front. So this front pack is loosening up just a little bit as Michael Yaknis tries to close the gap to first place.
And still investigating that penalty for Afonso. The best I can tell, I think he might have disengaged the pit limiter before crossing the pit exit line. And so he just barely got speeding in the pits.
And that does make sense why it would be a drive-through instead of a stop and go. They tend to penalize a little bit harder on the pit entry than the pit exit. Still unfortunate nonetheless. That is going to be a pretty significant position penalty for the driver. We'll see where they come out when they choose to serve it.
There are plenty of cars not too far behind, so he's definitely going to lose a few positions out of it.
The battle between Jan Stam and Ayrton Green is heating up as we saw it almost on top of one another coming into the second and final corner. We'll see what they do coming around the last corner here. Ayrton Green goes for the wide line, cuts back in, trying to get a good exit down the straight. We'll see if it pays off for them as they come around there. Let's take a look here at, let's see if I get
So he's in to serve his penalty right now. He goes in 10th. We'll see where he comes out. He makes sure to slow down for that entry line. Hopefully he makes sure to stay slow for the exit this time.
And just an update, that wider line did pay off for Ayrton Green. As we can see, is a little bit closer to the back bumper of the BMW out in front, and they had a 2 km/h advantage down that straight, which is enough for them to cinch up. And if they stay this close, they're going to have another opportunity to do it, but with the draft advantage again. And there is the penalty for Afonso cleared, now in 10th place. Let's see where they come out.
Out in 14th, right behind the 13th place of Lloyd, who he was battling earlier in the race before the pit cycles.
We'll see a little bit of a race rivalry here emerging between the two. We'll see if he's able to close it up. It is going to be a little bit of a challenge because after driving so slow through the pit, the tires will have cooled off a little bit. He's going to have to spend a couple of corners trying to warm them back up. And judging by the ambient light here at Hungaroring, it's looking like those clouds are coming over our heads right now and might start dumping some water on our heads.
Now, I know we discussed Lloyd's early pit strategy earlier, but this really did not play out for him, just like you mentioned. He was fighting with, I believe it was Ferreira and I can't remember the other car he was fighting with, but now he's well behind, about 20 seconds behind Ferreira after the pit cycles. And he pulls over and lets Afonso through. That is an interesting tactic from Lloyd. I'm not sure why he's letting Afonso go or how he fell down so far since the pit cycles.
Not sure. But Fonzo is definitely going to be pushing as hard as he can these final 15 minutes of the race. Currently only one position down from where they started the race. So they qualified P12. Now in P13, we'll see what they're able to do. Hey, Pop Dog hitting us with the Prime subscription. Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, and there is the rain, folks. Out of nowhere. And it is raining. Oh no, and it is going to rain even more. As we can see in the forecast, it is going to pick up in the next 10 minutes. I was right about the skies darkening. Track goes from optimum to green. We should see it go greasy here. There it is. And this race just got much, much more interesting.
With 15 minutes to go, they're almost certainly going to have to switch to the wet tires. Those slicks are not going to hold on for that long.
They can't. They don't have the choice. Pop Doggy hit us. Go Cody Barrett in the bean car. Getting a little bit of love from the chat for Cody Barrett. We'll take a look. Chris Hungarian runs off the track, and that is going to allow Nick Schwartz to pick up the position from a battle. We just missed it. Not sure what happened there with Chris. Back on the track. Looks like the front of the BMW is beat up a little bit. May have misjudged a corner. And yeah, you can see the hood bouncing around there. That must have been a big hit for Chris Hungarian. Not good news for them. We'll see what they choose to do with it. And we're starting to see yellow flags all over the place. Aiden Hasselbrook, sideways. And the front, oh man, that is some massive damage, and they're gonna teleport back to the pits. That may be the race over. Andre Alfonso, oh man, we're seeing yellow flags everywhere already. The rain started falling, and so are our drivers one by one.
There are 3 cars in the pits. I don't know that they're actually... Nope, it looks like Kimball is actually pitting. He must be on wets now. That could be the only thing that he's actually doing in the pits.
I don't know if that's the play, though.
Behind him. Yeah, it might be too early, but I think it's the safe call right now.
Oh man, big yellow flag out of Spencer Brown, the front end of that BMW, man. These drivers are dropping like flies. Joshua Kimball coming back out onto the track right now. Let's see if he's got wets on. It does look like he does. And yeah, that does look like it's curtains for Aiden Hasselbrook.
Into the pits. This might be the big brain play from Kimball.
We'll see if it pays off. Currently in P20, we'll see where he finishes. Thomas Castellani in the pits as well.
As Yaknis and Wright come down the front stretch, they still stay out on their slicks.
And that is, honestly, that would be the advice I'd be giving these drivers right now is just, you know, brake a little bit sooner and try not to be as aggressive. Turn your TC and ABS up and try and finish it, because to change tires at this track, we've been seeing average stop times being around about a minute by the time they get back out on the track. And unless they were doing wet practice during free practice and qualifying, they're basically going to have to ballpark their tire pressures, which can be extraordinarily risky on the wet tire compound, as it is much, much less compliant than the dries.
Yeah, Castellani's coming back out on the track now, but that was way too long to be a tire stop. He must have had damage that he had gone into the pits for. And now he picks up a drive-through on pit exit.
Oh, for speeding in pit lane again. Where, man, our driver's really having a tough time trying to know when to get off that pit limiter. Renato Ferreira coming up on the rear bumper. It looks like Chris Hungarian with some front-end damage. About the worst time that he could pick it up. Track goes from greasy to damp.
Carlin backwards right by the chicane at about turn 8. He's having a hard time getting back on the track because he has to face right at everybody coming out of the chicane.
Yep,
and he gets it back around, and he's getting rolling again. But there's another car in the pits. Looks like Schwartz is in, Hasselbrock is still in, and then Green is also stopped. And now we get also Ho and Lindsley. So it looks like now is the time that everybody's choosing to make the switch.
Yeah, we do have a lot of drivers coming in. Michael Yaknis choosing to stay out on the slicks has grown a sizable gap to Daniel Wright, who is now 9.5 seconds behind. A lot of drivers coming in right now. Ayrton Green is in, Nick Schwartz in, Siho is in.
Have opened, pun intended.
Yeah, we've got about half of the field in the pit lane right now, folks.
Green picks up a stop and go penalty. Obviously speeding in the pits. No. Yep. No, must... Oh, yeah, must have been speeding on pit entry. He's just out of the pits now, coming through turn 2.
Nick Schwartz makes their way back out on the track. Dylan Kaiser working their way around to turn 2 here behind the car of Rogerio Santos.
And I don't know if you noticed if Sunfen Lab, who was had that bad start to the race, ended up getting spun out of turn 3. Spent some time in the pit preparing, but never made his mandatory pit stop. Maybe he didn't realize that didn't count, and so now he's going to obviously be facing a penalty for not serving his mandatory stop, even though he spent about 2 minutes in the pits.
A big update on the battle for first here. Daniel Wright choosing to pit, which almost certainly means he's going to be going for the wet compound tire. You can see spin in the back end just a little bit, trying to get back out into pit lane. See no penalties accrued from Daniel Wright is going to leave the pits in 4th place, it looks like. And we'll see if that gamble pays off. Michael Yaknis still out on the dry compound on those slicks, which are almost certainly going to be feeling useless as we are starting to see water pool up on the track here, although it looks like the weather forecast is changing favorably for him because the 10-minute weather forecast shows the rain letting up with the track being damp. Pop Doggy says, let's go P5 AM for the beans. That is going to be Jan Stam, who is currently white flagged for going a little bit slow. Let's see here. I don't know if they're on the wets or not. But yeah, right now, actually, no. They're in P3 after the splits update here. And that is going to be Jan Stam, or Jan Stam. I should ask which one it is. In P3 in our AM class. And that is an amateur. In the top 3, we love to see it. We'll see if they're able to hang on to it. 9 minutes left here at Hungaroring, and the weather has made this interesting. And it is going to come down to the last 9 minutes here to see who is going to finish as well as they can, with some big strategy decisions being made out of our faster drivers. Daniel Wright going into the pits to try and get the wet tire compound on, and Michael Yaknis staying out on the slicks. We'll see who made the right call. I don't think it's going to be enough for Daniel Wright to overtake Michael Yaknis, but we'll see if it is enough for him to weasel his way back up into 3rd place, maybe even 2nd.
Right, yeah, Wright is catching up to Stam. I think he made about, and there he makes the move going into the 2nd to last turn. It was just a matter of time before he made that pass on Stam. He was making huge gains in each corner.
Yep, and he does make it happen. Update from the chat. Santos moving up, started in what did you say, P24. I'm trying to find him on the track. Yeah, now up in 15th. Yeah, they may have been down in 24th at one point, but they are up a position from where they qualified, so that means they would have qualified in P16. Up a position, which is always good. You love to see it. And actually, Renato Ferreira having a monstrous race right now, 15 positions up.
And they're going 3 wide into, I believe that's turn 12, and they're... Looks like Green, I believe. Green goes off the track. No, that was Yaknis. Oh, that was Yaknis going side by side with some blue flag cars, and he decides to bail out, take the runoff to make sure he doesn't get his race ended.
See, is he going to go into the pits? No, he is choosing to stay out on the slicks. The track is going to stay damp. The rain is going to stop here, but probably not before the race is over.
There's another drive-through penalty, car 69, Chris Ungurian. I know that driver was just in the pits about a lap or 2 ago. Must have also suffered the same fate as the others of exiting too early. Correction, exiting too fast.
Pop Dog saying calling podium for Cody Barrett with the sweet baked bean livery. And for anybody who couldn't tell, that is exactly what it is. At least that's what we're calling it now.
Really, I thought it was pizza.
Could be either, but I think it is now officially baked beans. The chat has spoken, and Cody Barrett is wrong if he disagrees. Actually, it might even be safety cones. As a matter of fact, I think it is traffic cones, but it's now baked beans.
No, yeah, it's baked beans.
Michael Yaknis right out in front is really losing pace right now. Last lap was a 2 minute and 3 second lap. It's really the best that you can ask for. Driving on road conditions like this on slick tires, only has to hang on to it for 6 more minutes. We'll see if they're able to do it, with the next closest car being Jeff Cohn, who is quite a bit farther back on the track, about 3 corners behind. We'll see if they're able to make up the difference with just 6 minutes left here in Hungary.
And with the chaos that the rain has brought, I don't know if you noticed, that car right behind Yaknis is Cody Barrett in the baked bean livery. He's in 9th place. That means there are only 8 cars left on the lead lap.
Let's look around here. A lot of white flags, just drivers not going as quick as they need to. Daniel Wright does move up from P4 to P3, does get around Jan Stam, and is now looking at hopefully 2nd place, but I think he's a little bit too far back. Let me do some clicking around. Yeah, he's a little far back to try and get 2nd place, but does secure himself a top 3 finish if he's able to keep the car going around, which is a good improvement based on what the outlook was previously in the race. Gets around that car on the inside of the corner there. Blue flag, yep, letting him pass.
And Jeff Cohn 2nd place, 20 seconds behind the leader, Mike Yaknis. I think this is, if he's comfortable staying out on these tires, I think this is basically in the bag for Yaknis.
Update from Cody Barrett, moves around Jeff Fleischman to take 8th place away, and now may potentially have his sights set on Ice Tin up in 7th position. Has some work to do if he's going to pull it off, but it is not out of the question yet. 4.5 minutes left to go of this race, and really anything could happen. We've got Jan Stam in 4th place, does get his top 3 hopes dashed by Daniel Wright, but still a remarkable finish from our amateur driver, Rogerio Ferraria in P5, and Arthur Chu in P6. We've actually got a good showing from our amateur drivers in the top 10 right now, blocking out a couple of the pros who just did not have the luck to hang on to that. But we'll see what happens here with just 4 minutes left in this race. Spencer Brown, my luck this season. You know, we were talking about that earlier in the race with some bad luck from who was 2nd place. Who was that? That was Andrew Jaski, having the mechanical failure on the start-finish grid and then getting wiped out in the traffic trying to charge their way back up the field. Just a reminder to everybody, luck does play a factor even in video games. Sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not.
Back down in 11th place, we do have a 3-way battle for the position. Chris Ungurian, who has cleared his penalty now, being chased down by Ho and Afonso, and they're both they were going side by side through turn 2 and 3.
And Chris Ungurian hanging on for dear life, as we saw, did have a minor accident earlier, did some damage to the front of the BMW that we're seeing on camera right now, but is fighting tooth and nail to try and hold off these 2 cars behind him. And because these are for position, he has no obligation to give that position up, and I would encourage him not to, and try and hang on to it, as we saw that BMW behind sliding around that corner just a little bit, trying to get in front of the BMW out in front, and just is not able to make it happen, but it is going to come down almost side by side, coming down into this final corner. Number 69 car on the outside does not have the preferred line there, and the sign is going to get in our way. Who comes out in front? And it still looks like a tie as they come up into the hairpin here, side by side here.
Behind the lap car of David. He's going to have a hard time making it through, and I know Afonso.
Ooh, and they're going to make contact, light contact between the 2 BMWs there as they come around the final corner. The inside line goes to the car trying to pass. Defending is going to be Chris Ungurian as they come around the straight back end, gets a little bit loose. Gets it back under control, but now the draft advantage is going to go to Chuck Ho right behind as they come up into turn 1. Let's see what happens. We're going to hop to the helicam here so we don't miss a
He's
thing.
on the grass.
Ooh.
And he backs out of it. He thinks better of it.
Oh, but Chris Ungurian misses the apex, way overshoots it.
Ungurian too.
Oh man, and that is a massive mistake for Chris Ungurian. Loses 2 positions by missing turn 1. Let's see if he's able to hang on to it. 2 minutes left in this race. Maybe another lap or 2 for these drivers. Not what Chris Ungurian wanted to have happen there.
For position, that's Santos and Green. This is a 5-car battle for 11th place.
Oh man, and from the helicopter cam, you really can see just how hard these drivers are having to fight to keep their cars under control. Watch the back tires, folks. They are stepping out on these drivers because of the road conditions, and it is going to be wet for the rest of this race.
And it looks like we're entering the last lap. Yaknis coming around the final corner right now to take the white flag.
Almost certainly, and he is going to hang on to the first place, probably uncontested, and we may see our race winner starting the final lap of the race right now. There it is. That's the white flag waved. Everybody now has to finish the laps that they're on, and we begin the final stage of this race with just 1 minute and 9 seconds here in Hungary.
And Afonso's getting really eager. He's right up Chuck Ho's chuck, if you will. Looking for the move any way he can make it. Afonso is a very very eager, very aggressive driver. He wants that position back.
Especially considering the challenges that he has faced throughout the race with a unfortunate drive-through after a little bit of drama earlier in the race as well.
He's got a nose inside of Ho, but Ho pulls out the lead. But Afonso's going to be right on his bumper going down the front straight. And Ho defends to the inside, tries to break the draft. And no doubt I think we'll see a move here from Afonso, and there it is. But he's just too far back to make it happen.
No, but he's thinking better. Look at how close he's getting,
Ho
though.
Runs wide, just like Hungarian.
Not wide enough for Afonso to make the move happen. But he's gonna, maybe looking up the inside, or is he just getting inside of the head of the amateur driver out in front? As we were mentioning, when those pro drivers see the red badge out in front, they start seeing blood.
Looks like he's got a little bit of a run here. It's not going to be a good place to make a move, but he's going to try to get right up on his bumper coming into the second sector.
Oh, tries on the outside. He's not going to be able to make it happen, but might get it on the cut back in and have favorable position coming into the chicane, and it looks like he's going to do it. He has the inside line charging up the hill, and that is going to be a successful pass, it looks like. Let's see what the car behind does. Misses the first bump, both drivers staying off the curbs, which are going to be as slippery as glass. Now bumper to bumper coming up to the next corner, and I believe that is going to be a successful pass by our pro driver, Andre Alfonso. Gets the position in the final lap of the race, and oh no, the car behind gets loose, loses the back end, and that is going to be now thoroughly Andre Alfonso's position right as the race finishes.
But the battle isn't over for 13th place. Chris Hungarian has Rogerio Santos looking to the inside. He pulls back in line. And I don't think he'll have the time to make it with these last two corners, as Yaknis crossed the line about a few seconds ago.
And it is going to come down to the final corner. That front aero damage of Chris Hungarian's car is going to affect his ability to get around this corner fast enough. Let's see if the car behind is able to do anything about it, but I don't think he's close enough to make it happen. And Chris Hungarian finishes the race, I believe, on slicks and with front end damage in 13th position for a well-fought race for him. And let's just go ahead. So we've got, let's see, the final couple of folks. Let's see, John Stam coming around the track right now. Got two more corners to go to finish 4th place. That is going to be our 1st place finisher in the amateur split. As we just got to nurse the car around the track. No reason to start pushing now. And our last couple of drivers will finish the race behind him. But let's go ahead and take a look at those standings. That is going to be a race win for Mike.
For 6th place, it looks like Ice Tin right behind him making a move coming up to the line, but he's not going to have enough to get it done.
Oh, and my cameras aren't doing what I'm telling them to do. Come on. There we go. Let's take a look at Billy Carlin coming around the final corner. Arthur Chu not far behind. We've got a BMW sideways hanging out on the straight. And that is gonna do it, folks. That is our race. So let's go ahead and take a look at our standings, which are going to take a second to update because the race just ended. But let's see if I can do this.
Oh, no. Who was fighting for the lead ends up in 25th place, even with the fastest lap. That's got to be incredibly frustrating to have that type of result.
No, but they do happen. But just let's go ahead and run down for anybody who wasn't watching on the left-hand side of the screen. We've got Michael Yaknis winning it, followed by, oh my goodness, come on, of course, you are making my life harder. Doing all these updates, there we go. Come on, give me timetables for the race, and it's gone already. No, there it is, okay, all right, I got it back. Pro streamer, everybody. Michael Yaknis in 1st place, Jeff Cohn in P2, Daniel Wright in P3, Jan Stam in P4, R. Ferraria finishing in 5th, Ice Tin in 6th, Arthur Chu in 7th, and Schwartz in 8th, Cody Barrett in 9th, and Jeff Fleischman rounding off the top 10. And that is going to do it for this race, folks. Very exciting down to the very end with some rain shaking things up right in the final 20 minutes of this race, giving everybody a run for their money on how they have done in their wet practice. But that's going to do it for Hungaroring. I'm running out of steam here, folks. Anything you'd like to say before we sign off? Still there, Paul?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. No, that was rain is always going to make things interesting, and that did make things interesting. And like I said, it was a dominant performance from right until all of a sudden it just wasn't anymore. And a big congratulations to Michael Yaknis being able to pull that off. And like you said, I think the verdict came down to he never pitted for tires. He managed to do what basically nobody else did, and still pulled out a gap for the lead.
Yeah, and it was very impressive, and it paid off. Although Daniel Wright switching to the wets did allow him the safety to be able to secure that third place finish for him after having to charge up the field to make up that ground. But that all said, that is going to do it for us this week here at Apollo Racing Club. Thank you, everybody who chose to hang out with us for this race. I hope it was as exciting for you all to watch as it was for us. Join us next week. If I remember correctly, we will be at Barcelona, the famous F1 test track, one of my favorites to drive in this game. And that's another track that is very interesting because it's got a little bit of everything. Lots of fast straights, weird chicanes, and complicated corners for these drivers to try and figure out. Join us next week, same time, same channel. If you haven't already and you like what you're seeing, go ahead and give us a follow. Hit that bell, make sure you get notifications. We do have races every day of the week now across a variety of different motorsports, from F1 to GT4 racing to, I believe there's an iRacing league for IndyCar one of the nights too. So if any of that sounds like something that you would like to watch, go ahead and give us a follow. Join our Discord if you want to drive with us. We're always looking for new drivers. This league is getting ready to finish. It's our mini league, so we'll be starting our proper full race season here in just a couple of weekends. But that's going to do it for us. One more thank you to everybody who chose to watch us, and hope to see you next week.